Hi, I'm Byron from Rainline. Today we're going to be installing the Rainline 5-stage underbench drinking water filter. I'm quickly just firstly going to go through the contents within the box. So first of all, we've got the tap or the faucet. We've got the membrane filter. We've got a length of hose tubing that'll be cut to the desired length you'll need. We've got a wall mount for the faucet if you don't want to put the faucet into a bench top, if you're perhaps renting a property and you don't want to drill into the bench. And we've got the 5-stage filter itself and a couple of spinners to undo the housings here. So now we're going to prepare the filter before we actually install it. So what that means is we're going to take these housings apart, take the wrappers off the filters inside and make sure everything's good to go, and these are nice and tight so nothing leaks. So with the spanner that comes with the pack, you want to undo these housings one at a time, and inside you'll find each various filter. So the first one's the sediment filter, so just take the wrapping off the cartridge and install it back into the housing. Make sure it sits right down inside the recess inside there. Okay, the next thing we want to do is you just want to get a little bit of Vaseline and just run a little bit of a bead around the top seal here. This just ensures that you get a nice tight seal on the housing here. So just run a little bit around the top there and then install the housing back into the main filter body. And use your spanner again just to tighten this back up. Not over tightened, but just tight enough so you know you've got a good seal here. And then just work your way along. So the next thing we're going to do is install the membrane filter into this top housing here. So to access this, we need to first of all remove the quick link fitting here, slide that forward, and then that hose can come out of there. And then with the spanner, the smaller spanner, we can undo this housing. Take it out of its packet, and just again a little bit of Vaseline around the top seal there. This also helps push it into the housing. So push that in nice and tight, and then put the cap back on. And just make sure it's nice and tight again with the spinner. To reinstall the quick link fitting with the hose, all we do is slide the blue clip back under here and then push the hose as far down as it will go into there. And that's done, that's all we need to do. So now our filter's all ready to install under the bench. We're going to move on to the next step. So the next thing we're going to do is install the faucet and beside the bench top here. So before you start, you just want to make sure there's no obstructions beneath the bench where you want to put the faucet in. So just check beneath there's no hoses or any obstructions there. And we just want to start with a small drill piece just to make a smaller hole, and then you want a 10mm drill piece to fit the base of the faucet here. So first of all, we'll just drill this hole. and then we're going to drill the bigger 10mm hole. Okay, now we're going to install the faucet into the hole that we've drilled. So first of all, we've got the top plate that sits on the faucet, so that goes on there first. And then we've got the rubber washer that sits under that. And then we want to put this down into the hole. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, on the underneath of the faucet, we're going to install the rubber washer, the washer that sits on top, and the nut. So these two parts go on first. And then screw that nut right up hard against the bench top to hold that faucet nice and tight in place. Now the next thing we're going to do is install the hose tubing into the bottom of the faucet. So first thing we're going to put on is the nut onto the tubing there. And then we want the white plastic olive, slide that on there. And then the small white piece that slides inside the tubing, push that up inside there. So when this nut does up, it crushes the olive nice and tight down onto the white piece, so you've got a nice tight seal against the faucet there. So we're going to install that onto the faucet now. Okay, now we're going to put the hose tubing onto the bottom of the faucet there, so screw in that on the bottom, and then this can be a little bit awkward under the bench, but do this up nice and tight to pinch that olive against the piece of hose tubing. And now we're going to apply plumbing tape to the threads of this T-junction and ball valve. When installing plumbing tape, always go clockwise with the thread. Just like so. The next thing we're going to do is install the T-junction under the kitchen bench into the cold water outlet. So what we're going to do is unscrew this. Make sure you turn your mains water supply off first before unscrewing that.
Yeah.
And then reconnect your main braided hose back to your tap. The next thing we're going to do is install the length of hose onto the ball valve here. So unscrew this nut here and slide that up onto the hose tubing. And then we're going to put this bit of hose onto the nipple here. Nice and tight, and then slide the nut up and screw that onto there. Now the next thing we're going to do is screw the ball valve into the T-junction that you previously installed. Okay, now we're going to connect the hoses into the main filter body. So the first one we're going to install is the hose running from the T-junction into the end of the primary filter, which is the sediment filter. So that's this end of the filter here. So remembering to leave the blue clips in and just pushing the hose inside of the quick link fitting there all the way up. And then the other hose running from the bottom of the faucet connects to the end of the carbon filter, the final stage of the filter, and just push that into place as well. And that's all ready to go. Okay, once we've turned the water back on to the house, we can open this ball valve here and let the water flow in through the water filter until the system's fully pressurised. Okay, the last step is we're just going to turn the faucet on for the first time. You will notice, and don't be alarmed, there will be a little bit of black residue come through on the first little bit of water. So I'm going to turn that on. See, it's slightly milky and charcoal coloured. And you just want to run the filter for the first time for about 5 minutes just to wash any carbon traces from the filter. The carbon's not harmful whatsoever, so but it's just nice to make sure all the residue's gone from the filter.